What is up, YouTube? It's been a couple of days, but if you haven't heard, Grinding Gear Games did what we call the announcement of the announcement for the next Path of Exile 2 update. But before we talk about it, please hit the like button on this video and subscribe to the channel for more Path of Exile content. I post videos weekly and live stream 5 to 6 days a week, so stop in sometime and hang out. Alright, let's get into it. GGG didn't give us any details as expected besides the release window. In their post on the Path of Exile forum and Reddit, they announced that the 0.4 update would be releasing in early December. I originally anticipated the update to come out on the 12th, and I think that date is still on the table. You might think that 12th isn't exactly early December, but it depends on how you view the month. There are effectively 4 Fridays in December, so if you consider each individual week, then yes, it looks like it would most likely release on the 5th of December. That said, if you bisect the month in half, then either the 5th or the 12th could be considered early December. But let's be honest, GGG is really good at dodging expectations ever so slightly. We saw that with the last update that they said it would be released in August, which it was, just the very last weekend of August, which fell on the 29th. So I think that the 12th is just as likely as the 5th for the release of 0.4. Now, what can we expect from the next patch? Well, it goes without saying the most anticipated feature is likely the release of a new class, which will be the Druid, which a lot of people, including GGG, expected to release in the current 0.3 league, but it simply wasn't finished yet. They have also done interviews recently seemingly definitively confirming the Druid for 0.4. Also likely to be released with the Druid is at least one new weapon type. There seems to be a weapon type associated with the Druid noted on the passive tree as Primal. What exactly that is, we don't know for certain. It could be something like claws or even some sort of a medium for spellcasting. Another potential weapon to release is swords. I believe we will see swords in 0.4 simply because in the interview done with Ziggy D for the release of the 0.3 update, they were asked something along the lines of things that they need to have in the game to be released officially in its free-to-play full access form. Jonathan Rogers, the game's director, answered that it would be really hard to release an ARPG without the addition of swords, which Mark Roberts, the other game director, followed up by commenting saying that it was surprising that they have gotten away with it as long as they have so far. We might have to wait for another class release for this edition, like the Duelist class, but I think with how the developers have talked about it, we should at least have swords on our radar for things that are pretty high possibility to be included in 0.4. Next, we will definitely be getting a new league mechanic. With the rise of the Abyssal League wrapping up, I think we can assume a fair majority of the content will go core, as GGG is trying to populate the game with different mechanics for the endgame. It just will no longer be on every map and be the focus of the endgame. Instead, we can expect another mechanic to be ported over from the original Path of Exile. Given we don't have any real information yet, I don't want to speculate too much. But I have seen content creators circle the idea that Delve could be the next mechanic. This seems to be the focus of speculation due to a particular NPC that was added to the game in 0.3 having some dialogue that has led people to believe that the new league mechanic would take us further underground. In addition to the new league mechanic, we will also be getting a lot of changes to the endgame systems in general. Again, we don't know exactly what GGG is planning here, but we do know the 0.3.1 changes that were made to the tower system were planned to release in 0.4, but they wanted to implement it early. They likely did this knowing that removing reliance on towers for juicing maps was a much requested change that needed to be implemented as soon as possible. That said, I still think this will be revised going into 0.4, but I don't have too much more speculation on what to expect from that part of the update. The last thing we can assure will happen are nerfs, and I think everyone knows what I'm talking about when I say that the Lightning Arrow Deadeye is absolutely going to get hit with a nerf hammer. Since League start, it has been the top performing and most played build, and for good reason. It's fast, it's powerful, and it's easy to get up and running to complete all of the endgame content. How exactly this build gets nerfed is anyone's guess, but GGG has taken apart overperforming builds with each league launch by nerfing them from multiple angles. In the past, we have seen nerfs to gear such as Dream Fragments, Melting Maelstrom, Hand of Wisdom in Action, Tangle Tongue, and others. They have made big changes to passive tree nodes and skill gems such as Eldritch Battery, Mind Over Matter, Grim Feast, and the different elemental heralds, just to name a few instances. So I think it's more than reasonable for you to expect this build to get absolutely smashed. There are a few things that I hope to see in 0.4 in addition to what we already know will be included. One of those things I hope to see are new items to continue expanding on the game's crafting system. With Abyssal Omens and Desecrations to be much less frequent, we can assume the cost of these items will be going up dramatically, so hopefully some new crafting options will come through that can continue making crafting accessible to more players. A league mechanic like Delve could help that, with the primary reward in that mechanic being fossils that are used in crafting. I also hope to see adjustments and expansion of the current league mechanics and pinnacle bosses. We know from prior interviews and now the current Path of Exile Keepers of the Flame League that there is a lot more to the Breach mechanic, including more bosses. I am not sure how much of that we can expect in this update, but I think it would be cool to see all of the pinnacle bosses be expanded on in the future instead of just having 3 tiers of difficulty on each boss. Also, I would really like to see Expedition get reworked the most of all the mechanics. They took away Olroth, the mechanic's pinnacle boss, from being a random encounter on a logbook map in exchange for a splinter system that resembles the other mechanics' splinter systems we use to encounter their pinnacle bosses. This was a step in the right direction, but right now, those Expedition splinters are locked behind the Expedition logbooks maps, and finding logbooks are not all that common without making a concerted effort to collect them. This is in pretty stark contrast to all the other splinter types for encountering pinnacle bosses, which are available in any map that have those mechanics in them. So putting Expedition splinters in some of the chests that we excavate on a map I think would be a nice and simple addition, but also maybe just doing something to make Expedition feel more rewarding. Besides splinters, good loot is pretty infrequent from my experience, both in maps with the mechanic or in logbooks themselves. Making a change to make it feel more rewarding I think would be a step in the right direction for that mechanic. That is a lot of information for a small post that didn't give us any real details about what we can actually expect in 0.4. Anyways, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Path of Exile content, and comment down below on what you expect we will get or are hoping to see in 0.4. That is all I have for you today, but I will see you in the next one.